Good evening. Today we're going to look at my favorite Trichocereus seedlings. One of the cool parts about growing thousands and thousands of seedlings is that I get to go through the flats and pick stuff out that looks unique, promising, different, or has some characteristic that I would like to pursue. I will say that not that many of them turn out really truly exceptional, where there's some combination of traits that really stand out and make me, they stand out in the crowd. Not only amongst the seedlings, but amongst the rest of my cactus collection, right? That's important too. You can't keep and propagate and name everything, right? What I'm looking for is things that are unique, or they're of a type that I want, or they have some characteristic that I might want to even just pursue in breeding more cactus with those traits. Keep in mind that I'm interested in breeding these things over time, and that's all about parents. It's all about genetics. Which genetics are you selecting? Planting random seedlings, you're gonna get, and cactus does throw quite a bit of variation, but you're not going to get the kind of stuff where you pick the parents and put those together, and then amongst that population you pick out those few that are, different out of that selected, narrowed down gene pool. So this is Jules Giant right here, and this is a parent that I'm particularly interested in and that we're going to see some seedlings of. You can see how fat it is. Not only it's a large diameter, but it's also like blocky. In the young cactus here, you can see there's a significant groove, but it starts to flatten out down here, and on the mature plants it's very flat. That's a trait I'm particularly interested in, and what I'm always looking for is the cactus where when these pups are young, this groove disappears really quickly, like right down and about here. That's kind of ideal for getting super blocky cactus. So let's start with the King Tubby. This is scope number 9, which is a spiny scopulicola. Like, it has, small spines, like something like a small spine pack. In fact, the scopes have a little bit bigger spines than King Tubby does. Scope number 9 is just a scope that my friend Mark Albert had. I was recently told that it may be synonymous with Tucson fat, or this other one, scope number 10, Mark Albert scope number 10, aka the Queen, may just be Tucson fat, but the Tucson fat may be a number of different cactuses under that name. So I don't know what's up with that. So King Tubby, very flat sides, very like bulbous, tubby, chubby genetics. Unfortunately, these are about the best samples I have right now, but I'll cut in a couple pictures that should give you maybe a little bit better idea of what the mature plants are going to look like. It really stands out in the crowd. This is a special cactus. So this one also has a name. A lot of these don't have names. Some of them may not get named, but we'll see. This is Gordita. Look at how these grooves disappear right away. As soon as the cactus, even before the cactus reaches like this fatter diameter down here, it's already basically flat. I mean, look at how chubby that little pup is. So Gordita is pretty special. It also has very small spines. Now, I may have got labels mixed up because this really looks like a scope number 9 X Jules Giant, but the label says it's scope number 10, the Queen, same one I was just talking about, crossed with a cross between SSO2 and Berkeley Botanical Gardens Pachanoe. So if that's the case, it's a three-way hybrid, a 3-species hybrid. Who knows? Who knows? But it has very, very small spines, so that makes me kind of doubt it's what it was labeled as. But it could be. It could be. Anyway, super chubby, Gordita, which just basically means small fat in Spanish. All right, so this is scope number 9, X Jules Giant. This is a pretty neat cactus. It's fairly blocky. It's not like flat-sided or anything, but it's pretty awesome and symmetrical and smooth and fun and vigorous. Like, it's a really good grower too. I would say King Tubby and Gordita are not particularly like super big growers like Jules Giant is. I think they're going to prove to be on the smaller side. Although if you look at these here, they're pretty fat, so we'll see. But this seems to be an especially fast grower. I don't know that I would give this one a name. and propagate it yet, but I probably will. It's pretty dang cool. I mean, do you want one of those? I think you do. I do. All right, let's go elsewhere here. Okay, this is Kimnock 627, let's see, I don't know, something. Kimnock something or other number, X Santiensis. This thing is really cool. It's very, very blocky. You can see it's very, you know, monolithic looking, flat-sided. I'm usually selecting for small spines, but this has very pretty, you know, these kind of amber, dark tip spines that you see on some of like the Matacana pachanoi. It's just a cool cactus. I mean, I think this thing's pretty awesome. That will probably get a name and get propagated. Mallophore X Mallophore, extremely small spines. It almost seems like they're just going to disappear. It's definitely like notably very, very small spines. Very symmetrical, very smooth, just a really beautiful cactus, like pretty blocky. Again, you don't see where like these grooves are disappearing right away. It takes like down to here, and even down here they're still not totally blocked out. And then this one too is also Mallophore F2, and it is very similar, but it seems to be more vigorous and more bulbous. So you can see like these ribs are more bulbed out, whereas this one is kind of sharp. So if this continues to grow as a 5-ribbed, which is a trait I'm really interested in, you know, it's 5 ribs, 5 ribs, 5 ribs, right? I select those a lot. These are the ones I'm showing you, the 5-ribbed ones. I have a name for that if it continues to grow as 5 ribs. These are pretty neat cactus, you know. I'm pretty sure people would like to grow clones of these. So I wouldn't say these are like favorites, but they're notable in that they're just monstrous growth. All these seedlings here, all the way to here, are all from the same year. And we'll first of all look at what happens when you put stuff in a 1-gallon pot versus potting it up in something bigger. Let's like, you know, these hold 3 or 4 times the amount of soil, much higher growth. But you will also notice that this cactus and that cactus are bigger than everything. That's a particular cross that just showed super high vigor, which was Oscar X Mallophore. Yeah, Oscar X Mallophore. They also, it's hard to tell probably in this video and in this light, but they have an especially really deep dark green color, especially this one. I don't know, maybe you can see it. They're notably super dark. So, you know, I kept these seedlings as well, you know, kind of for further observation. There's some neat stuff in there, but I'm not like super crazy about any of it. I think out of all of these, this is probably the one that I kind of favor the most. It's very chubby, blunt, symmetrical, nice, cool notching. And that is TPMX Jewels, which is also just kind of a neat cross to make. I like that one a lot. I could see ending up propagating that one, maybe, but it doesn't distinguish itself, you know, all that much. All right, let's head to the greenhouse and look at some stuff up there. So if you're waiting for cactus to show up on my website, everything just grew really slow this year. I transplanted everything because I had all these algae problems. The algae just grew back, so I'm basically ignoring it and hoping for the best. I may still work on a way to, you know, kill it or something, but everything's behind. So it's going to be like probably late spring or early summer before I have cactus for sale. There's some stuff ready like here, but I'm not sure I want to list just a few things. I might just wait until a lot more stuff is ready. That's kind of the plan. I also had a lot of damage by caterpillars. So you can see some of this stuff is growing back because it got munched down. They just went along and munched. It's like birds and fruit, right? They have to go from one fruit to the next and just peck a little bit out of each fruit and ruin everything. I want those to grow back better so that, you know, you can see like this one's starting to look better now before I sell them and ship them out. So I tend to save my mutants aside, but most of these I'm not super interested in. Like there may be something in there that grows real weird like this right here that I take an interest in, but mostly I'm after the highest quality crests. That's what I'm really looking for. These all show some degree of mutation, and we'll just see what they do in the future. And these, like almost all of these, if not all of them, I'll end up selling. What I'm looking for and I'm keeping are like these 5 right here are out of that same batch of seedlings. When I see a crest that's really nice and very cresty, that looks like it's going to stay crusty, like this and that, which are from the year before, those are the ones that I pull out, and there aren't very many of them. Like this one is probably going to go to points. So you see point, 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 you know, we'll see. But if they start growing like a whole bunch of points, I don't really like those. Like this one's showing that tendency here. This one might be showing it there. So it takes a lot of those mutants to come out with these really pure, really nice crests like this. I mean, this is probably 3 years old. Imagine what that's going to look like at 5, 8, 10 years old. I don't know. Maybe it'll become a problem. My friend was here and he's like, dude, that's just going to be a giant mess in, you know, a number of years. And I'm like, well, if it looks like this or that, just bigger, pff, cool. Variegates, you know, it's not really my thing, although they're growing on me, I have to say. You know, I definitely pull them out because I know people are excited about them and whatever. Maybe selling some cuts will help me pay for my Cactus Ranch project and all my other projects, which are numerous and big and expensive. But this is a pretty cool one. This is SSO2 Baker. Yeah, Baker X SSO2. So that's pretty neat. This one is just showing a little bit and then it kind of stops. So I'm not sure on that one. This one is the strongest. So this is Malivore X Jessica. Very variegated. This one again, like you could see here, there's a little, but it's really not showing it up here. This one looks more obvious, but again, there's not a ton of it. And then this one's looking pretty good here. That's Davy open pollinated from New Zealand. This is Tom's Jules Giant X Casino, which is a pretty neat cross. Although the cactus looks, you know, I don't see anything super special about it. So I wouldn't say that these are really favorites, because my affinity for variegated cactus is not high. But they're pretty neat, and I know some of you guys are probably into them, so I just wanted to show them to you. Another reason I don't want to sell seedlings yet is that I want them to get big enough that I can start to tell what's up with them and make selections. When they're like this, it's just, you can't see anything. I'm not going to get much information until they start to look about this big. You know, then I can start to tell some differences and I'll be like, oh, that has relatively small spines and it's 5-sided and it looks pretty fat, you know, something like that is the kind of stuff I'll pick out. Like this one here, there's a 5-sided seedling right there, and that is Saniguela Valley, Peru. So I pretty much know what this is going to look like. Reddish spines, real pretty, blocky, 5-sided, pretty cool. I might pull that one. But really, I still want these in general to get bigger before I make my selections. All right, let's go out where I have some planted outside. All of these cactus that are planted here are actually seedlings. There's number 9 Scope X Jewels, number 10 the Queen Scope X Jewels, number 10 Scope X SSO2X BBG, and Scope number 9 X Scope number 10. There's a few things in here that really stand out, and then there's quite a few that you know, I'll be keeping my eye on, but some I'm already like, oh, these are cool. So this is one of them. This is one of the number 10 X SSO2X BBG. So when you see the parentheses here, that means that that second cactus is a cross between SSO2 and BBG. So we look at this from the top and these grooves flatten out by just right there. So very, very blocky. Just look at that. Pretty pattern. So one day I bumped my head really hard on a piece of Jules Giant and I had to sit in the yard for about 6 hours recovering in the springtime, and everything was like beautiful and lush and green and just flushed out, and I was like maybe 20 or 30 feet away from this cactus, and it just really got my attention. There was like a little block of cactus there, and I was like staring at this the whole time going, damn, that thing's awesome. So I've been keeping an eye on that since. That thing looks really cool. Look how like blunt and chubby the top is. Pretty small spines. You know, there's some other ones like in here that are number 9 X Jewels that are looking pretty cool. Most of these are grafted, so that's King Tubby. This is Bitterfly, that's King Tubby. This one's not grafted. That one looks pretty cool. It says probably number 9 X Jewels. But a lot of these are grafted to King Tubby. You know, you could see chubby little guys, and then there's quite a few Gordita grafts in here too. That's a Gordita graft. You can see how like bulbous it is. Another one out here that really stands out to me, and the reason I'm making this video, or I was out here like eating apples and checking on my apple project, and I walked through here and I saw this thing again for the minieth time. And just like, wow, that thing really, again, kind of stands out in the crowd. Number 10 Scopex Jules Giant. Pretty fat and blocky, but just really neat looking. It's got these very closely spaced, very small spines. I mean, look at this. You know, really neat looking cactus. So I like that one a lot. And this one is similar. I think this has, yeah, this has 7 ribs. That one has 6 ribs, but this is just a nice small spined, again, fat, pretty blocky, number 10 X Jules cross. And you can see the similarity. Like what you're really seeing is my selections, like my bias of what I select for. This one's especially large in diameter. This one's almost like, I wonder that it's not kind of a genetic dwarf, because it is small compared to these other ones here, which are the same group that I selected out. And I think all 5 of these are probably grown exactly the same way. It is shorter and these sections are smaller, and that's something we'll see like in a dwarf fruit tree where the buds are just spaced very, very close together and you get this dwarf effect. It could end up being kind of a genetic dwarf. We'll see. If I kind of walk through here, I'll spot other stuff that I'm kind of like, oh, that's sort of interesting. But those are the main ones, you know. Some of these scopes look nice, like this one looks really nice. It's a scope number 9 X scope number 10, and I could see wanting to grow this more than either number 9 or number 10. I mean, it's got, especially if it starts throwing pups that are 5-sided, blocky, it's smooth, it just looks really cool. That's a pretty neat one there. Let's just walk down here and see if anything else jumps out. I mean, there's some cool stuff in here, but how cool. Those are really the things that stand out the most, except maybe this one right here. Okay, so very blocky, although, you know, it's cut off, so it's hard to tell for sure. Once it throws pups, I'll know more what it's gonna grow like. I've been having my eye on that one too. This is one of my new apples. A lot of them show very strong pink flesh development. Look at that. A little bit of berry flavor. Anyway, I was just coming down here to show you the dwarfing effect that you see in fruit teas. These are dwarf columnars, so they tend to grow just like a few very upright branches covered in these. These are all fruiting spurs right here. This thing was just covered like a bunch of grapes. That's what I'm saying with that cactus, is like seeing these really close spaced spines and its short stature. It may be that that's an indication of genetic dwarfism in a cactus. I don't know. I haven't been growing cactus long enough. Here's some more Tom's Jules Giant cuts. You can see very blocky, very fat. What we have here is the seedlings I've saved from the previous year. You know, I just showed you the newest seedlings in the trays. Well, these are from the previous batch to that. And these are the ones I've selected out for further observation, you know, deciding whether I want to grow them or not, you know, what their attributes are, etc. So what you'll see a lot of in here is cactus with small spines, typically blocky fat cactus and 5-sided cactus. And what I really like is all those things in one cactus, right? So I had a lot of slug damage, and I don't even know what this is, adulation and stuff is about. Like, I don't know what happened to this one, but it looks very promising. I mean, it's super, super fat. Look how flat the top is. You know, the spines look relatively small. That one looks interesting. That one looks interesting. That is super messed up. I had a lot of slug damage this year, so things are pretty messed up, and a lot of them had to regrow. But that thing looks particularly interesting. Very small, weird white spines, very, very blocky. I have a good feeling about that one there. Look at that. That looks interesting to me. That looks interesting. A lot of this stuff I won't end up keeping, you know, or I may end up keeping it and using it as rootstock, basically, so that I have good, you know, clean, disease-free rootstock to use that's grown from seed. That one looks interesting. And then there's other things that I picked just because they're especially pretty. This looks really interesting too. That looks like a lot like that seedling I showed you earlier. Like that. Look how notched out that is. It almost looks like an Ecuadorian pack. Is that variegated? Or is that just like sunburn or something? You know, that could be a variegate too. If that's a variegate and it looks like that, That's pretty neat. There's another, looks like a variegate right here. Yep, that's variegate. Sure looks like it, although it's kind of, no, that is. So that'll get moved into the greenhouse for safekeeping. So as these grow, I'll just keep weeding them out and taking stuff out that I don't want and moving it over into these blocks, which are the stuff I selected originally to keep an eye on and then decided I wasn't really interested in. So these, I saw most of these locally. People come up and buy them. There's neat stuff in here. Like, this is the Matocana open pollinated type. A significant number in the flats, like most of them actually, tend toward this type where they're super fat. I mean, look how fat that is compared to just everything in here, except for that other OP Matocana there. And then they'll have this like beautiful spine color with the dark tips, like amber with dark tips. So I just kept a couple of those, even though it's not like a type I'm super interested in. I just picked out the couple of prettiest ones, and I thought, well, that thing's going to look really nice when it's growing. As far as my breeding goals and everything like that, yeah, not really so much. There you go for now. I have probably 5 or 6 things that already have names or will get names, maybe 7. After another year of growth, I'll get a pretty good idea of what some of this stuff's going to look like.